I sat at my corner desk, the city skyline stretching endlessly beyond my window, the late afternoon sun casting golden stripes across my office. My silk blouse felt impossibly soft against my skin, a small luxury I allowed myself amidst the chaos of deadlines and board meetings. The hum of traffic below was distant, almost soothing, until my phone buzzed sharply on the polished oak surface. It was a message I wasn't expecting, from a number I didn't recognize, but somehow I already knew it would rattle me. I tapped it open, and my heart skipped a beat. Not from love, but from a memory I had spent years burying. My aunt's name stared back at me, bold and familiar, like an uninvited shadow in the sunlight. For a moment, I stared at the screen, fingers hovering, my mind a carousel of past hurt. The betrayal didn't hurt as sharply as it once had. No, it was the audacity, the sheer nerve of it, that made me smile inwardly. The same aunt who had tried to steal my happiness, who lured James into marrying her daughter, was now reaching out. I sipped my coffee, feeling its warmth seep through my fingers, grounding me. My lips curved in a faint, ironic smile. I had rebuilt everything they thought they could take from me. My thoughts lingered on the apartment I'd bought with my first big deal, the office that now bore my name, and the life I had carved for myself with grit and quiet determination. I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer the girl who walked away crying. And now it was time to face them. I remember the way the summer air smelled that day, sticky with heat, and the scent of blooming jasmine in my aunt's sprawling backyard. I was 24, head over heels in love with James, and foolishly blind to the warning signs. My Aunt Marlene had always been charming, her laugh tinkling like fine crystal, but there was a sharpness behind her eyes I chose not to see. And then there was her daughter, Tiffany, sweet if you ignored the way she always lingered just a little too close when James was around. At first it was subtle, compliments that felt like advice. Maybe James would like someone who truly appreciates him? Or the sly suggestions when she dropped by my apartment. You know, I think Tiffany has a real connection with him, don't you? I laughed it off, thinking, surely, I was imagining things. But I wasn't. The invitations for double dates, the coincidental lunch meetings, the casual confessions of James' admiration, they were all orchestrated. And I realized it on that sunlit afternoon, standing by the wrought iron fence, my hands trembling around the stem of my iced tea. Tiffany's eyes sparkled with triumph, Marlene's smile smug, and James looked at me like I was suddenly invisible. I felt a lump rise in my throat, a sharp sting of betrayal that made the world tilt. My voice shook when I asked, "Is this really happening?" But neither of them answered. The silence was worse than any confession. I left without another word, clutching the small silver locket my grandmother had given me before she passed. "Never let anyone steal your light," she had whispered. I gripped it tightly that day, letting the cold metal bite into my palm as a reminder. I would survive this. I would rise. I wouldn't beg. That was the moment I made my decision. Tears blurred the edges of the lawn, the laughter, the treachery. But beneath the hurt, a fire sparked, a vow that no betrayal, no manipulation, would define me. I would forge my own path, on my own terms. And that's exactly what I intended to do. I moved across state lines with nothing but a suitcase, my grandmother's locket in my pocket, and a heart still raw but fiercely determined. I rented a tiny apartment in Chicago, bare walls, squeaky floors, and a view of the alley behind a coffee shop, but it was mine. My first job was mundane, filing paperwork for a marketing firm, but every envelope I sorted, every report I typed, was a step away from the girl I had been, and a step toward the woman I was becoming. I met Claire, my mentor, on a rainy Tuesday. She noticed me struggling with a client pitch and stopped mid-coffee break. "You've got talent," she said, eyes sharp yet kind. "Don't waste it hiding in the background." Her words were a spark. Claire took me under her wing, teaching me the nuances of negotiation, strategy, and branding. She was tough, exacting, and unafraid to call me out when I doubted myself, which was often. The nights were the hardest. I would lie awake in my cramped apartment, staring at the peeling ceiling, feeling the sting of loneliness and the ache of rejection. I'd brush my nails in the dim lamplight, sip cheap coffee, and whisper reminders to myself. You're better than they think. You are capable. You will rise. Each small win, a successful client call, a profitable campaign, a glowing email from Claire, became fuel. I learned to celebrate quietly. The first time I closed a major account, I treated myself to a chocolate croissant, sitting on my fire escape and watching the city wake. No one knew. My family had been convinced I was struggling, still nursing my heartbreak. Every modest Instagram post, every phone call home, was carefully curated to hide the truth. I was building an empire under their noses. 2 years in, I started my own consultancy, just a small office with a single desk, a few chairs, and a stack of hand-me-down art from Claire. It grew steadily, the kind of growth that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I pored over contracts, negotiated late into the night, and reveled in each client who trusted me with their brand. Money came, respect came, but more than anything, confidence came. I remember the first time I sat in my own office, the sunlight streaming across the polished floor, and ran my fingers over the sleek mahogany desk. I smiled because I had done it, without my aunt, without James, without anyone who had doubted me. My life was mine to shape, and I was no longer waiting for permission. I had become the woman they thought they had destroyed. And yet, deep inside, I knew the story wasn't over. Not until they understood the cost of betrayal and the strength of the girl they had underestimated. It was a crisp Tuesday morning when they walked in, thinking they'd find the same girl they had tried to humiliate years ago. Marlene and Tiffany, all smiles and pretense, appeared at my office door, carrying the kind of entitlement that had once made my stomach twist with anger. James wasn't with them, but that hardly mattered. They had come seeking favors, advice, or perhaps just to assert control. I stood behind my desk, sipping a latte, my heels clicking softly against the polished oak floor. The sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the art I had chosen myself, abstract paintings, black and white photographs, a few awards I had earned silently. The office was sleek but personal, every detail reflecting the woman I had become, meticulous, confident, untouchable. Marlene's eyes widened almost immediately. She froze, her practiced charm faltering as she took in the expensive leather chairs, the glass-topped desk, the minimalist sculptures that adorned the space. Tiffany's hand went to her mouth, a nervous tick I had never seen before, her usual smugness absent. I noticed it all, the subtle shift in posture, the hesitation in their steps, and I allowed a slow, controlled smile to curl on my lips. I set my mug down and finally spoke, my voice calm but ringing with authority. "Welcome. I wasn't expecting you." Marlene attempted a casual laugh, but it sounded hollow, even to her. "Emma, we thought. Well, we hoped to, you know," she trailed off, her words dissolving into embarrassment. I gestured toward the space around us. "You thought you'd see the girl who left crying, struggling to find her place. The one you tried to push aside, manipulate, and erase." My voice softened slightly, almost empathetic, but there was steel underneath. "But that girl doesn't exist anymore." They stared, dumbfounded, as I continued. "This," I said, letting my hand sweep across the office, "is mine. Every client, every project, every piece of work. I built it. All of it. And yes, that includes the opportunities you thought you were trying to steal from me." Marlene's lips parted, Tiffany's eyes widened, and the air between us crackled with disbelief. They couldn't speak. The silence stretched, and I let them feel it, every second of it. I am the CEO of my own company. I've taken every chance, survived every betrayal, and turned it into something no one could take away. I said, my tone unwavering. "You wanted to humiliate me. You wanted to replace me. Funny, isn't it? The same girl you tried to destroy now owns everything you coveted." Tears, or perhaps rage, glimmered in Tiffany's eyes, and Marlene's face drained of color. I watched them absorb it all. The sleek office, the awards, the proof of my success, the calm authority radiating from me. Then, I leaned back in my chair, letting the truth hang in the air. No anger, no shouting. Just quiet, deliberate triumph. "Welcome to my world," I said, letting the words land like a final verdict. For the first time in years, I felt a rush of satisfaction, not petty revenge, but the pure, undeniable power of a woman who had taken back everything they thought they could steal. The room was quiet after my declaration, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes every heartbeat sound loud. Marlene finally spoke, her voice brittle, almost pleading. "Emma, I held up a hand, cutting her off.
No.
"Not yet." My tone was calm, unshakable, a far cry from the trembling girl who had walked away years ago. I had the upper hand now. The authority, the resources, the clarity. It was time to set the rules. "You want my help?"
Fine, I said.
"But it comes with conditions." I watched their expressions shift, the first glimmer of understanding, or fear, creeping in. "First," I continued, my voice firm but not cruel, "Marlene, you will admit to your manipulation publicly. No excuses, no sugarcoating. Only truth. People need to understand the cost of deceit. That's how you start to heal." Marlene swallowed hard, her pride battling with the reality of the situation. I let the moment stretch, letting her absorb the weight of her choices. "Tiffany," I turned to her, eyes locking onto hers, "you will pursue something of your own. Honestly and sincerely. No more riding the coattails of others. Find a path that doesn't involve taking what isn't yours." She bit her lip, the first flicker of self-awareness breaking through the arrogance that had once defined her. "And both of you," I said, leaning back, letting the calm power radiate from me, "will leave me out of your schemes from now on. No one touches what I've built without my consent. You respect boundaries, or there will be consequences." I paused, watching them realize I wasn't making empty threats. Every word I spoke was anchored in the years of betrayal I had endured and the mountains I had climbed alone. Yet, beneath the firmness, there was compassion too, the understanding that change is possible if they were willing to face the truth. "This isn't about revenge," I added softly, almost conversationally. "It's about growth. It's about learning to respect others and yourself. Do that, and maybe someday you'll understand why I walked away and why I came back stronger." I saw the shift, subtle but undeniable. Pride gave way to recognition, arrogance to accountability. They would not change overnight, but for the first time, I felt confident that my conditions could ignite the spark they needed. I stood and let the room breathe with me. The tables had turned completely, and for once, I wasn't pleading or begging. I was the architect of my own fate, the keeper of my own power. I had faced the betrayal, claimed back my life, and now I was guiding them toward the only path I could allow: honesty, effort, and respect. And for the first time in years, I felt no anger. Only control, clarity, and the quiet satisfaction of a woman who had finally set things right. Weeks later, the change was subtle but undeniable. Marlene had started volunteering at a local nonprofit, finally owning her past mistakes instead of hiding behind charm. Tiffany had enrolled in a professional design course, working nights to fund her own small projects, no longer leaning on anyone's influence. They weren't perfect, but for the first time, I saw effort, accountability, and the beginnings of self-awareness. I sat in my office one evening, the city lights flickering like stars against the dark skyline. The locket my grandmother had given me rested lightly against my chest, cool and grounding. I traced its delicate silver edges and remembered her words, "Never let anyone steal your light." I had clutched it tightly on that sweltering summer day when betrayal cut me deep, and now, years later, it reminded me of everything I had become. I thought about the nights I had cried alone, the days I had fought to be seen, the countless moments of doubt and fear. Every setback, every pang of heartbreak had shaped me, forged me into someone who could stand tall and command her life with grace and authority. I was no longer the girl who had walked away with trembling hands and a bruised heart. I was the woman who reclaimed everything, quietly, confidently, without anyone realizing the storm that had built her. I poured myself a cup of tea, savoring its warmth, and watched the reflections of the city dance across the window. There was peace in knowing that the past no longer held power over me. I had taken back what was mine, set boundaries, and extended compassion without compromise. And in that moment, I finally understood the truth my grandmother had always known. Strength isn't about holding grudges, and revenge isn't about destruction. It's about rising above, claiming your power, and shaping a life so full of dignity and purpose that no one can diminish it. I looked down at the locket one last time and whispered softly, almost to myself. I used to think losing them broke me, but now I know it was the moment I found my power. The city hummed outside, indifferent, and I smiled. The past had shaped me, but it did not define me. I was free, I was whole, and I was unstoppable,